What's going on, 49ers faithful? Let's talk trades. Welcome to the Cayman's Island podcast, where we talk all things San Francisco 49ers. I'm your host, David Cayman. The 49ers are at the crossroads of a very impactful offseason. This isn't about replacing old stars, but this is about stabilizing weak spots before they cost you another playoff run. So let's get into it, guys. The 49ers need help, I feel, at multiple positions. And we're going to talk about really three areas where I feel like the Niners can make some trades and bring some guys in here that make an immediate impact. So let's look at the first area, the wide receiver room. I feel like it's more fragile than it appears. On paper, the 49ers wide receiver room is okay, but in reality, it's a bit unstable. You have Ricky Pearsall. I would call it the Ricky Pearsall concern factor. When Ricky Pearsall has been healthy, he has absolutely shown flashes. He's had some big games. He shows elite speed, the ability to separate and make some really nice catches. Unfortunately, this man cannot stay healthy. He's just been unable to prove that he can sustain health for any extended periods throughout an NFL season. Then you have the whole Jauan Jennings free agency factor, okay? You're talking about a player who's been physical, most importantly, reliable. He's been very consistent on third down, but the reality is he's about to hit free agency. And he is going to garner a contract of wide receiver 2 money. And paying Jennings that type of money, especially when he's not a true separator, really doesn't make a lot of sense. So you have a situation where you have Ricky with his health concerns. I think JJ is gone, and there's no establishment of a true dominant number one wide receiver in this room. And you cannot expect Brock Purdy in a division with the Rams, in a division with Seattle, to try and elevate a mid-tier room at best all season long, week in and week out. That's just not realistic. That's what we attempted to do really all season long this year. And I feel like that's going to be a major area where the Niners need to pick up the phone and make some phone calls for a trade. Secondly, the edge rush, right? That is going to be probably, in my opinion, an even more important need than wide receiver. Look, guys, Nick Bosa's elite. I know he's coming off of his third ACL. We've seen what Nick is like after injury. The man is still usually comes back and is still a monster. But in big games when Bosa gets doubled and he's getting chipped on the edge, the pressure has a tendency to disappear. And this cannot happen again. You cannot sit here, guys, and waste away Nick Bosa's last 2-3 years of elite play and not get this man some help. I really feel as though the man has not had true, consistent help at edge the entire time he's been a 49er. And I know we've brought in some guys that have made splashes here and there, but there's never been anything really consistent. When you look at what Raheem Morris is more than likely going to do in this scheme, he's more than likely going to stick with the wide 9. So you have that defensive structure depending upon 4-man pressure, wide 9 dominance, and winning without blitzing. Now, I know he's going to come in here and mix some things up, probably have a few 5-man fronts from time to time, and that's great and good and all. But if you don't fix the opposite edge spot, the coverage is eventually going to break down. I feel as though edge remains the most important defensive need on the San Francisco 49ers. The third need I have is the offensive line. I feel like it's quiet, but it's crucial. Trent Williams is still elite, no doubt about it, but he's aging. The interior pass protection has been inconsistent at times, And with this wide receiver room uncertainty, Brock Purdy is going to need some more time in the pocket. Even if you bring in a guy, it's going to take a few games to develop that chemistry. So protection becomes even more important when that separation isn't exactly automatic. And you know we're going to have a need more than likely at guard in the offseason. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's look at some players here, faithful. Let's look at some guys that can come in day one and fix these needs. And I think you have to talk about the big names that are linked to the Niners right off the bat. There's been a lot of talk about A.J. Brown, and that's the big name. And you make a trade for A.J. Brown, boom, it's over with. Instantly, you solve your wide receiver one issue. And why it's tempting. He's a true alpha receiver. He's physically dominant, elite after the catch. He's a proven playoff performer. Now, I know it's a what have you done for me lately league, and we ourselves as 49er fans have a bad taste in our mouth for how bad we got stomped by Seattle in the playoffs. That's the last memory we have of our team. And so you also have that same image of the 49ers beating the Eagles on their home field and A.J. Brown with all those drops. Look, that performance is definitely in the minority. And I think we would all agree. I think it's best for the Eagles that they move on from A.J. and it's best for A.J. to get a change of scenery. I feel like that marriage is a little tarnished, and I really feel like it would do both parties good to come up with a trade package, get A.J. somewhere where he's happy, and then on the other side of that coin, get the Eagles maybe a player, some draft compensation to start over at the wide receiver one position. I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is why I actually stay away from A.J. Brown. Number one, the contract. You're absorbing probably $25, $30 million per year. That changes your cap structure. You become really top heavy right overnight. You're looking at more than likely the Niners having to get rid of their first round pick at 27, plus a player, maybe even a third round pick. Would the Eagles take our 27 and Ricky Pearsall? Maybe the Eagles think, hey, maybe Ricky Pearsall needs a change of scenery, and they can do something with that youth and that speed. It's just something to think about. That's premium draft capital during a roster recalibration. It's bold. It fixes the need, but I feel like it's risky. I think like that would be like tier one problem solved. I think a better option at tier two would be somebody like a Jordan Addison. And look, this is not some revelation. Everybody has been talking about and linking Jordan Addison to the 49ers for some time. I feel he's a better fit for this stage of the roster. I would really like to keep Ricky because I feel like we would mess around and let Ricky go or trade him, and that man would end up being a top 10 receiver in the league. I just feel like if Ricky can somehow have a full healthy season, he can be that guy. I really do. I really feel like he can flash and be a number one receiver in the league if he can just stay healthy. Addison is younger. He's an elite route runner. He can provide vertical separation. He's explosive in space. And he's also going to give you that affordable contract. You're looking at probably getting this man for a second-round pick. I think where the Niners are going to be hesitant is the speeding and legal issues. There are questions about Addison's maturity. You would really have to vet the impact of the locker room. But when you look at that, you would bring in a young guy into a veteran locker room with a guy like Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy being a really good leader. I would take the Jordan Addison move before I would go A.J. Brown. It just, from a pure football perspective, Addison fits Kyle Shanahan's offense perfectly, and you're not taking all that money, and you're keeping your first-round pick. That's the move I would do. If there were a dark horse scenario move, and I could really see the Niners just because of the way they are doing something like this, if there were a dark horse move specific at wide receiver, I could see the Niners taking a chance on a Tyreek Hill. Now, getting a Tyreek Hill, I know he's coming off of a major injury. You'd have to do all the vetting of his injury, make sure he's absolutely 100% ready to go. But you're talking about an instant cheat code for Brock Purdy, okay? One of Brock's biggest problems is that he held onto the ball a little bit too much and tried to make plays downfield. Now you're talking about Brock making a 5-yard pass where a player could take it 80 yards, right? Tyreek Hill on 1 leg and a half is faster probably than anybody on our roster. So there would be cost involved. It'd probably cost, your first round pick, maybe a 4th round pick. You'd have to worry about a contract restructure for Tyreek Hill. But he is elite. He would be an absolute day one cheat code for Brock Purdy. I can only imagine what Kyle would do, not even necessarily getting him the ball, but stretching the field and opening up all of that offense. And I just feel as though you stay away because that's more of a short window investment, and it really doesn't match where the roster is right now. And so that's going to be a question. Next, players that can help that defensive edge. You know the name. You've heard it. He's been linked to San Francisco all over the place, and that's Maxx Crosby. You're talking about a guy, plug and play, day one. You know what you're getting. This is a guy that wants to leave his franchise because he wants to play football, even if hurt. You match that dude on the other side of a Nick Bosa, and you get Mykel Williams back healthy, guys, and my goodness, I think that instantly changes the game for San Francisco. I think that puts a lot of hurt day one on a team like Seattle. It definitely puts some hurt on the Rams. You're talking about somebody that can nullify, 2 guys that can nullify offense off the edge on the same D-line. I think it would be a big deal. Here's why I think it will not happen, okay? He's nearing 30, massive contract. You're talking about before you even pick up the phone to see if the Raiders would even entertain a phone call from San Francisco, you start the conversation by saying, "Hello, my name's John Lynch. Before I say another word, here are 2 first-round picks." So you're offering 2 firsts before you even talk about anything else. And that's peak pricing, peak value during a roster stabilization phase. And I just feel like it's just too expensive. Similar to Jordan Addison in the wide receiver realm fix of the 49ers. I think you have another tier that you could go that would be less expensive and probably overall on paper a better fit. Let's talk about Kayvon Thibodeaux from the Giants. He's young. He's explosive. I feel like he's ascending. I know he's had some injury issues. He's young. You're talking about probably a 2nd-round pick for a former 2022 top 5 draft pick out of Oregon. And in this scenario, you're buying years, not just peak value. You get to keep your first. You get to keep your number 1 overall pick this year. And next year, now you'd have to extend the guy for sure, but you're talking about youth. And so I think that's an area you could look at. I think he would fit the scheme. I think he would do well. It would just be, can the man stay healthy? A dark horse scenario I see from a defensive end position. And I know I'm about to go draft here, but it still counts as a trade, okay? Let's say there's a scenario where Reuben Bain Jr. is sitting at number 11 with the Miami Dolphins. Could you give the Dolphins a call and say, hey, guys, Mac Jones, the 27th overall pick in the draft, and a 3rd rounder. Move up, get your young edge, keep next year's 1st overall pick. That's an aggressive move that gets you youth. You can get this kid working with a Chris Kasarik, and it's aggressive, but it's without mortgaging your future. I've looked also at, offensive line trades and things of that nature. And I really feel when you look across the board at the possible availability out there, I think you don't make any trades at line and you stick with the draft, man. You take a couple of offensive linemen in this year's draft, use some of those extra fourth round picks you have and just load up. Just load up on offensive linemen, have some young guys there, and don't try to make any trades for offensive linemen. A lot of times, guys, that doesn't work. I know everybody's going to beat me up with the whole Trent Williams worked out. Yes, it did. I can't help that Washington was absolutely crazy in letting us get that guy in the first place. But hey, I'm not mad at him. I'm glad it worked out for us in that one. I would say this, if there is a dark horse trade candidate just across the board at any position, I could see the 49ers making a move for somebody like a Trent McDuffie from Kansas City Chiefs. This is intriguing. He's young. He is an elite technician, versatile inside and out, big-time game-proven guy. It would cost a first-round pick, probably a third-round pick, and then you have to extend him. I know that for the pros, there would be long-term. He would be a long-term defensive cornerstone on the defense. He would raise your playoff ceiling instantly, and he gives you a lot of matchup flexibility. It's a lot of premium draft capital. It would cost some big-time money to extend him, and it doesn't really solve that whole pass rush problem, but the 49ers have had, I guess you could say, some good results at picking former Kansas City Chief cornerbacks. So I do feel like edge is still the bigger need, but I would, if you had to ask me what would a dark horse candidate be, I would say that would be one. So in closing, guys, this isn't about replacing former stars. It's about stabilizing weaknesses. Ricky Pearsall's health uncertainty, Jennings likely leaving on free agency, Bosa needing help, aging offensive line. Try and stay away from guys like A.J. Brown with a big deal, Tyreek Hill. Stay away from losing 2 first-round picks with a Maxx Crosby gamble. Target some guys like a Jordan Addison if you vet him out. Kayvon Thibodeaux. Trading up in the draft, man, and getting your young edge. If you just wanted to get crazy and get somebody like a McDuffie, if you could get the right price, build smart, stay flexible, extend the window of success. Don't shorten it with jumping out there and mortgaging your future on an aging veteran. That's not where I feel that the 49ers should go this offseason at all. We were able to win 12 games with one of the most injured teams I've ever seen in history. The fact that the 49ers had no sacks this year at all and were still able to win 12 games is completely wild to me. And so I think that the 49ers have the ability to fly under the radar in the sense of Seattle's at the top of everybody's mind because they just won the Super Bowl. The Rams won 12 games as well. They're in our own division. It was supposedly what you would want to call a down year in the NFL, and other teams are going to look at getting better. I feel as though this offseason, the 49ers, with what they have available to spend, what they can do in the draft and the trades they can make, they can really take this team with the right moves to another level and truly compete for a Super Bowl championship next season. Guys, that's going to do it for today's show, Faithful. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Is there any other trade candidates I may have missed? Are there certain guys you like better than the others? Please let us know in the comments. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the show today, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a whole bunch. As always, guys, take care, be blessed, and go Niners.